Hey, I'm Amy, thank you for tuning in. August was quite a busy month for me, so I've got a few updates first, and then I'm going to talk about the books that I read during the month and the books I'm planning to read in September for the start of spooky season. So first up, I featured an interview with Gwendolyn Keist during August, who is the author of Reluctant Immortals, which is a fantastic book for spooky season. It's about Lucy Westenra from Dracula, Bertha Mason from Jane Eyre, and it's just this deliciously creepy book about two women who live forever and have still been feeling oppressed by the men who made them immortal, and they're sort of planning to do something about it. I also did my virtual launch with the lovely Beth from Books Nest, and she interviewed me about Mina and the Slayers, so I'll link to Beth's channel in the description if you'd like to watch that. Next up, I also took part in Point Horror Book Club this month as the featured author, and we read The Forbidden Game, which is one of my favourite point horror books. I also was really lucky to have two launches. I had a launch at Doncaster Waterstones, which is my local one, and I had a launch at Forbidden Planet in London. It's been a dream of mine to do a Waterstones event and a Forbidden Planet event, and to be able to do both of them for this book was just amazing. So I'll put some video and some photographs at the end so you can get a little sneak peek into both of those events. Next up, I'll tell you about the books that I read this month. Some I read on Kindle and some I listened to the audiobook, but I do have physical copies of all of them that I can show you. So first up, I read Big Bad Me. This is a proof and is going to be published in October, so it's perfect for the middle of spooky season, and I really love this book. It was a great start to the month. It's about a girl who's just found out that she's a werewolf, and they are in search of their missing mother. They go to a town where they have to lay low to hide from other supernatural beings. And I just really enjoyed the relationships in this book. I liked trying to work out who you could trust and who you couldn't. It also has an angle of local teenagers are disappearing, and there have been a rise in animal attacks, as there often are in these sorts of books, including my own. And I thought this was really well done. It's perfect for Buffy fans, and it has that kind of pithy dialogue and found family. If you're looking for something like Buffy, this one is a perfect read for spooky season. Next, I listened to the audiobook of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is a reread, but it's been a while and I absolutely love this book, so I thought I would give it a go. I'm probably going to listen to the other two back to back as well after reading this one. For those who don't know, Pip, as part of a school project, is investigating a case that has never seemed right to her, where a local boy was accused of murdering his girlfriend. And it's a very well done YA thriller with lots of twists and turns, absolutely brilliant characters and writing. And I like the fact that it's written in different formats. So the audiobook did it beautifully, where there were interviews sort of read out to you. In the book you would read the transcripts. And I like the fact that the audiobook had a larger cast of characters than just one narrator reading it, which I think is always fun and adds a different dimension. So I'm sure most of you have probably read this, but if you haven't, definitely one of my favourites. Next up, I've been enjoying the Night Huntress novels. These are spicy vampire books about a girl who is half vampire and she is a vampire slayer. And I read One Foot in the Grave this month. I read the first book last month, and I'm going to be reading the third one in September because they're just really fun. They're spicy, some spicier than others, and I really like the main character, Kat, and her love interest Bones is basically Spike from Buffy in my mind. He's got this bleach blonde hair, long black coat, and he's British, so I think I just imagine this as sort of Spike fan fiction. It's really good fun, perfect this time of year, and it's probably one of my favourite nostalgic vampire series, so I would definitely recommend giving this one a go. Next, I continued reading the Sookie Stackhouse Mysteries by Charlene Harris as part of the Fictional Hangover book club. This month's read was From Dead to Worse. I don't have a lot new to add about these books each month, just the fact that I would really recommend reading them like I've done, sort of serialised, because I think that I feel like I've really got to know Sookie now, and she's sort of moving through different relationships with people in the books. I like the fact that these books keep those familiar characters but then introduce new ones and new dimensions. This one is in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, so it's interesting the way it melds real events with supernatural. And Sookie's got wrapped up in problems with werewolves in this one, so it's a really good fun read with a mixture of werewolves, vampires, and other supernatural creatures like fairies as well. Next, we have the second Inheritance Games book, The Hawthorne Legacy. I'm absolutely loving this series. I think that in terms of plotting and mystery and the setting of this huge mysterious house that holds so many secrets and the family that live there, I just think is absolutely brilliant. I adore the Hawthorne brothers. I couldn't tell you which is my favourite, but I really like how the main character sort of is finding a way with them and finding that some of them are friends, some of them she's deciding whether or not to trust, and then she has potential love interests in the mix as well. These are really good. If you're a fan of Good Girls Guide to Murder, I'd recommend picking these up as well. I also, as I mentioned, joined Point Horror Book Club to chat about The Forbidden Game, which is probably my favourite point horror of all time. And if you like things like Labyrinth, where a girl goes into kind of a mysterious world and has to navigate her way through it, this is a similar story. Her and her friends are sucked into a game and they have to stand up to their fears in order to progress through the game and escape into the real world. And this has got the most appealing antagonist. Julian is probably one of my first bookish crushes. You can see an interpretation of him on the front. He's this mysterious, blonde, kind of cyberpunk character who wants Jenny, the main character, to be his forever. And the sort of that Edward Cullen Twilight feel, however you feel about that now, that real intensity of teenage emotion, I think I absolutely was craving in my preteens. I still enjoyed it now, and it was still a really good read even as an adult. Next, and probably one of the most exciting books I've been sent for as long as I can remember, One Girl in All the World by Kendara Blake, and this is a signed copy too, which is really lovely. This is the follow-up to In Every Generation, which is a Buffy sequel set quite some time after the Buffy TV show, where Willow has a daughter who is now a teenager, and she is the latest Slayer. And always when I see that there are going to be new Buffy things, I'm a little bit nervous because I love the Buffyverse so much. I want things to feel like they progress naturally and be authentic. And I don't think I've read anything like Kendara Blake's books in terms of capturing the voice of the characters. Some of my favourites are in here. I won't spoil who they are, because that's part of the fun, coming across them as you read the book. But I do like the fact that this book expands the Buffyverse and it feels like it has something new to say in terms of plot. But at the end of the day, I think that if you're writing in a pre-existing world, you've got to really love it and really know it. And I think Kendara Blake, I can't think of anybody probably who could do a better job. I would like to try it myself sometime. But if I can't do it, then Kendara Blake is definitely, she's done an amazing job of it. And I can't wait for the next book. I'm really excited about how the trilogy will finish. Another book that I didn't expect to read in August was The Other Ones by Fran Hart. I was sent a really, really early ebook copy of it. It comes out later this year, and I'll put details in the description about that. And I love it when a book arrives that I'm not expecting and I just end up absolutely loving it. So this is described as sort of Gilmore Girls and Heartstopper, but with a ghost story at the heart of it. And it's about two teens who live in a house that everybody in the community says is haunted, and they've got sort of all this mystique around them. But what I really liked about it was the fact that you've got this really intriguing ghost story, and then you've got two boys who fall in love with each other, and they sort of start off as friends, kind of an unlikely friendship, I suppose. And then you get to see the progress of their relationship. And also it's this really lovely story of found family, where this group of friends who've come from kind of all different groups in the school, they come together and form their own friendship group. And I think that what I love about things like Buffy, balancing that kind of the supernatural with the sort of everyday realities of being a teenager, The Other Ones does that absolutely beautifully. I'm so glad that I got to read an early version of it, because it's one of those books I know people are going to love it. I really loved it, and I'm really grateful to the publisher for sending me an early copy, so thank you for that. So next we have the books that I'm currently reading. Accidentally there are 3 of them, this always happens to me. Darcy Coates's book The Haunting of Ashburn House, I was really enjoying, got about halfway through it for Spoopathon at the beginning of August, I think that was, and then promptly lost this book since then. So I found it again just in time to say I didn't get a chance to finish it. It is, I think the title on the cover pretty much says it all, a haunted house book that is done really well. It's one of those houses that the whole community know about, and there have been stories about it. And I'm really interested to see how this one will unfold, so I'll probably get to this pretty soon this month. Next, I'm reading on my Kindle At Gravesend, which is the continuation of the Night Huntress books. And I like how this world is expanding, and Kat is now working with a government agency, a sort of secret agency, to take down unruly vampires. And Bones, her partner, is getting involved as well. And I think that This book, this series, like the Suki Stackhouse ones, is good at expanding but also keeping those characters that you really like, keeping you guessing with the plot. I've nearly finished this one, so I'm probably going to get to the next one as well during September. And finally, I've nearly finished The Agency for Scandal. Like the Kendara Blake book, when this one arrived, I'm not much of a squealer, but I think I did squeal when I opened the envelope for this. It comes out in January next year, but Laura Wood is one of those authors for me. It'll probably be surprising to you because if you've watched any of my stuff before, I'm not a big reader of romance and historical fiction, but Laura Wood just has a way of writing that makes you completely immersed in the world and the time period, but it's romance that she does so well. I think I always enjoy romance in fantasy settings and things like that, and in horror, but Laura's romance and her characters just make you fall in love with them and really root for them. And I think I say this every time I read a Laura Wood book. I think A Sky Painted Gold is probably my favourite because it was the first, but this one comes really close, and I particularly liked the main love interest, Robert, in that book, and I think I like Max just as much. He's absolutely great. So I'm loving this one. I'm sure I'll finish it really soon, and I'd highly recommend you give this one a pre-order because it's brilliant. It is about an agency who protect women who find it hard in the society of the time to protect themselves. So women that aren't being treated well by their spouses and things like that. The Agency for Scandal are there, calling themselves the Finch Agency, I think it is. They are there to stand up for these women. So I think that's just a great premise and delivered on beautifully as ever by Laura Wood. So next it's time for my TBR pile. I've been a little bit ambitious this month, as I always am during spooky season, because there are so many books I want to read. I've also been a bit ambitious because certain books turned up last month, like The Agency for Scandal and One Girl in All the World, that I wasn't expecting, so they kind of derailed my TBR pile because I really wanted to get to those two straight away. So some of these books are books that I planned to read last month and ended up not having time to read them, and some are books that have arrived and just come out and I can't wait to get to them. So the first of those is Lord of the Flies by Goldie Mordowski. I absolutely loved The Last Girl by Goldie Mordowski, and this one sounds like it's going to be just as fun. It says on the back, how to survive when a music festival turns bad. Don't upset the influencers, especially when there's no Wi-Fi. Don't annoy the beauty gurus, especially if they've lost their makeup. Don't get on the wrong side of a super hot headliner, especially when he could be a murderer. I mean, I think that sounds like it's going to tick all my boxes. Plus this cover is beautiful. And I'll try and find out who the illustrator is and link that in the description, but I'm really excited about this one. Quite short as well, so I think I'm going to be able to race through it. Next up we have Stein Tinklers by R.L. Stein. I don't know how they haven't used this name before because I think it's brilliant. And this is a signed edition from Forbidden Planet. I'm not sure if they still have any, but you can check it out if you're interested. It's a book of short stories and I haven't read any R.L. Stein for a while, so I thought this would be really fun for spooky season. Next, another highly anticipated book of mine, Friendo Lives, Clown in the Cornfield 2. I'm so excited about this book. I loved the slasher feel of Clown in the Cornfield. I think that Adam Caesar did this really well, creating this amazing evocative book that feels like Scream, and that's something I'm always looking for from fiction and not often finding. So this one, I'm not going to read the blurb because I don't want to know. I want it to be a surprise, but I'd recommend you get to the first book if you haven't done so already and then check this one out. Next we have another book that somehow passed me by, Bloody Fool for Love, a Spike prequel. I like how he's crossed out Buffy and put a Spike prequel, by William Ritter. I think there are a variety of Buffy books coming out over the next couple of years, and I love that there is one focused on Spike now, so I'm really hopeful that William Ritter is going to capture Spike's voice and character. I'm very interested what point of this life this is going to be, whether it's any parts of the Buffy years, but again, I'm not going to read the blurb because I want this one to be a surprise. Next, finally, I'm going to read the final Gambit and find out where the Inheritance Games series is going to conclude. There are so many threads sort of trailing at the moment and questions left unanswered, so I'm really excited to see how it's all going to come out and how the mystery is going to be resolved, and I'm sure it's going to be brilliant. I'm really excited. Ready or Not is a book I've been so excited to read, and for whatever reason I've just not got to it this past couple of months, so this will be the month I hope that I'm going to read Tracy Darnton's new book. It is about a game of hide and seek that goes badly wrong and somebody goes missing. I haven't read any Tracy Darnton books yet, but I've heard brilliant things about them, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this one. Next we have Waking the Witch, another book that was on my TBR pile, but I ended up wanting to read the proofs that arrived. So this one sounds like it's going to be perfect for spooky season. It's a book about female empowerment, steeped in Welsh mythology and Arthurian legend. And I'm assuming something to do with witches, so that ticks everything that I'm looking for from my spooky season. I do like to read some things based in folklore as well as different types of horror. Next, Kill River has been on my TBR pile, but I had to just bump it because I didn't get a chance to read it last month. I've heard really good things about it, seen it all over YouTube. It's set in the 80s and it's about some teens who thought they had a whole water park to themselves. They were wrong, ... Sounds really fun. I'm hoping for sort of Clan in the Cornfield type vibes with that one. My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I haven't read any Tessa Bailey books before. I like the fact that this one, it sounds like it has kind of a murder mystery storyline as well as the romance. So I'm looking forward to giving her books a go. Next we have Dead and Gone, the next Charlene Harris one. I'm not going to read the blurb because I want to be surprised by this one. I'm feeling that this month actually, that I don't want to know what's going to happen in the books I'm planning to read. There will also be the next Point Horror book club pick, which I'll try to get to. I don't know what that's going to be yet for September, so as soon as I find out, I will pick up a copy of that. I also wanted to mention that I'm going to be doing a couple of in-person events this month. So on September the 10th, I'm going to be in Preston. Doing an event in a tent, which sounds really fun. It's this gorgeous big event space, and I'm going to be doing that with Cynthia Murphy and Melissa Wolliver will be chairing. So we'll be talking about thrillers and writing chilling fiction and just having loads of fun because we are friends in real life as well. So that should be a really great event. I'll link in the description if you'd like to book tickets for that, and they are free. The following weekend I will also be signing books in Hull. I'm not doing an event there, but I'm just going to be doing a signing so people can come in and chat to me and get some books signed. And I think I mentioned before that in October I've got an event. I think it's on the 21st or 22nd of October, but I will put the proper details in the description, where I'm going to be doing a signing in Ashford Kent Waterstones, which would be lovely to chat to people. It's during their Halloween celebrations in the shop and they asked me to come all the way down to Kent for it, so I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Please come into the comments and chat to me about spooky books you're planning to read or anything that I'm planning to read that you're excited about, because I'd love to have a chat with you. Thank you so much for watching. As ever, likes and subscribes are really appreciated. Thank you. Bye.